Some weeks after Colin's death, his family sought answers. This is a story of how authorities lie to hide the truth. At no time had Colin's family challenged the authorities on their account of the events from the night Colin died. However, Colin had been denying that he had been with another girl. We thought that we owed it to him to find out if this was true, so we hired a private detective to help us find the truth. On the 20th of July, the day after the funeral, Margaret was interviewed by a PC. He was in the house for about 3 hours. Margaret gave a lot of information about what was happening, how she'd seen Colin every night, and she also was talking about problems that she saw with the relationship. The officer didn't seem interested in this. He just kept reassuring us that everything had been done and this was an open and shut case. We made contact with a private investigator who had previously been a police officer. We explained that we just wanted to give closure to this part of Colin's story. We had explained that Colin had taken his own life by stabbing himself through the chest. The private investigator was a bit startled by this, as he had never come across anything like that, and he questioned if there had been a proper investigation. We told him we had been assured that this had been an open and shut case. The private investigator did find the girl. Colin had had an affair some time previous, but what was surprising, this girl had never been approached by the police, and this concerned the private investigator. Unfortunately, we did not go back and challenge the police, as we believed what we had been told by them, that this was an open and shut case. While we were back in the US, an acquaintance that worked with the Californian Highway Patrol and attended many fatalities also questioned the notion that Colin could actually have killed himself. This prompted much research on our part, and the findings did not support suicide. Therefore, we contacted the private detective again and talked through our concerns. Unbeknown to us, the fiscal was already asking questions of the police. A key question was, why was Candace treated as a witness and not a suspect? We know that Candace was being treated as a witness and not a suspect as early as 9 o'clock that evening, less than 40 minutes after the police arrived. This was due to the fact that she'd been placed in the police van alongside relatives. So what answers did the police give the fiscal? If they had given them a complete analysis of what they had done, surely the fiscal would have seen that an investigation must take place. So what did they get that stopped this happening? Notwithstanding the fiscal's inquiries, Colin's family wrote to the fiscal, interestingly with almost the same line of questioning. What was it that made them so sure Colin took his own life? It also highlighted that Margaret had information that should have made her a pertinent witness in this event. Retrospectively, the response from the fiscal in early October should have caused us concern, but we never really saw it as that because we didn't really understand the failures in the first instance.
The death of Colin has been reported to this office and investigations are ongoing.
A follow-up call with the fiscal in late November suggests there was an awareness of police failings, also that there was a lack of evidence and more investigation into police actions was ongoing. Retrospectively, it's clear there was no actual investigation into the death of Colin. It's evident that the authorities already knew there was a problem. But why did they do nothing? There were two clear issues going on in the background. These issues would cause concern in the public domain, and Colin's case would obviously exacerbate this. The first issue they were facing was that Fife police were being investigated by Lothian Borders for the corrupt framing of 2 men in a murder trial. This was Operation Carnegie. This resulted in an ex-senior officer being imprisoned for manipulation of statements in their home system. We will return to this, as we believe it does have some great relevance. Unfortunately, we also see that 1 month after Colin's death, that an uncle of Candace Bonner also died in police cells, and we find there was also a culpability of the police. A death in police cells leads to a mandatory FAI, and any police failure will be aired in public. If we look at police executive minutes from October and December 2007, there is a clear awareness in the limitations of their handling of the death of Candace's uncle. But would they associate this death with Candace? In fact, they could not miss this, as Candace's mother is the next of kin on the death certificate. The details of what we release next were withheld from Colin's family for the FBI, but we do believe they are critical in the actions and decisions that become hereafter. As we can see in the letter from the senior fiscal to the pathologist, there is no mistaking the concern in the decisions made to date.
Again, that is not a criticism of the autopsy or the conclusion, but raises concern for me how the whole matter was investigated. The other issue for me is quite simply that in 36 years as a Procurator Fiscal, I have never come across somebody who has committed suicide by stabbing himself in the chest.
In a later response from the Crown Office, we were told that not only did the Fiscal write this letter to pathologists, he also instructed Fife Police to open a homicide investigation. This was in February 2008. We know today that no homicide investigation took place. We also note that the Fiscal with the police reviewed the information available. It would have been abundantly clear that no investigation had taken place. There was no attempt to take disciplinary action, and therefore the mistakes of the beginning were hidden. This concern over lack of action by Fife Police was shared by the Police Investigations and Review Commissioner in August 2014. Our family really had no idea what was going on behind the scenes, but the next letter from the Fiscal gave us great hope. This next letter was sent to Margaret in March 2008.
I have decided the matter will continue to be treated as a suspicious death until such time as I am satisfied that homicide cannot be proved beyond reasonable doubt. To that end, I have asked for further inquiries to be made. I am making further inquiries with the pathologist in relation to the nature of the injury from which Mr. Marr suffered, and I have asked the police to provide me with a full report of all the investigations that they carried out whilst treating the death as suspicious. Finally, I have asked for further interviewing to take place, and I will receive the report of that expeditiously, I am assured.
Why was this letter sent? We hear talk of reviews that are being organised with police and pathologists, but according to the Crown Office, these meetings had already taken place an entire month earlier. Furthermore, we have no evidence of any further interviewing. The next letter from the Fiscal from May 2008 suggests that there is an ongoing investigation. We were, however, getting suspicious, as no one from our family had been interviewed.
The police have provided me with a transcript of an interview taken some time ago from Candace Bonner. I have asked the police to re-interview Candace Bonner and report to me.
Candace Bonner was interviewed on the 26th of May 2008. Tony Whittle will explain his thoughts on this interview.
Well, I think that interview, which I think is totally inadequate, she was under caution. That means she's suspected of murder. It doesn't matter whether she's arrested or not. That's a choice for the police. Once you are cautioned, you are being told you are a suspect for murder. Otherwise, you're under caution. So that should have been a thorough inquiry into her, taking her account, getting her to give her story. And then once she's given her account, then test it against what we already know. The need for the caution was to make what she was saying admissible in evidence against her. The previous interview was not admissible in evidence against her. It could be used to challenge it, it could be used to test, but it was a witness statement. So they need to formalise that situation. But that should have been a much more detailed interview. And I've read it, and it's a tick box interview.
The interview under caution lasted about 32 minutes. The detective who interviewed Candace on the night of Colin's death was present. Not one contradiction between statements was challenged, and there were some. This interview has been criticised by every review of this case. In the meantime, our private investigator put us in touch with Professor Tony Busuttil, an eminent pathologist. We discussed the case and that Colin had been stabbed through the chest. He said that while it's possible that it was self-inflicted, it is very rare and needs to be thoroughly investigated. He suggested that it would be useful for him to be able to see the post-mortem report. We were invited to a meeting with the Fiscal on the 18th of June 2008. In this meeting he informed us that there had been a thorough investigation into the death of Colin. They suggested that the findings were that Colin did this himself, and then they went to show us physically how he could have done it. But he wasn't happy that we brought up the discussion we had with Professor Busuttil. He told us he would rather we spoke to his pathologist than speaking to Professor Busuttil. But we left unhappy and told him that we wanted a copy of the post-mortem report. So once again, there was still no investigation, no forensic analysis, decisions controlled by department heads, and Colin's mum was still not interviewed. How can they say that there has been an investigation? There's no way this is negligence. This is deliberate lying.